From jumping out a window to catapulting over a second floor railing to trying to crawl through a ceiling, these are some of the most wild and memorable courthouse escapes. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We've seen a lot in courtrooms, haven't we, right? Dramatic testimony, incriminating forensic and digital evidence, the tense back and forths between witnesses and attorneys, also between judges and attorneys, judges and defendants. We've talked a lot about it. But you know what we really haven't talked about yet? That happens actually a surprising amount? Courthouse escapes. That's right. The courthouse escapes that are just unbelievable. But they happen. And they happen a lot. So we're going to get into some of these absolutely incredible moments from recent cases. First up, Newport, Tennessee. This is back in February of 2023. We have 33-year-old Michael Dean Smith, who is in the Cook County Courthouse, and he's in this striped jailhouse garb along with other inmates, just sitting there. He's handcuffed, shackled. He was actually arrested on charges of being a fugitive from justice and possession of methamphetamine, and he reportedly had additional charges of violating a protective order, fleeing, and traffic violations. Reporting indicates that he was tracked down to a campground, engaged in a brief struggle before ultimately being apprehended. But now let's go back to him in this courtroom, okay? So you see him there, and apparently he had been getting up regularly to get tissues. But at one point, he gets up, not to get tissues, no. As seen on the courtroom video, he appears to shuffle towards the open window and then proceeds to jump out. Second-story window, jumps out. Reportedly fell on his back. Now, you can see in the video that has no sound, there is absolute commotion. One of the officers makes a dash out of the courtroom. A sergeant was able to stop Smith, though. The Cook County Sheriff's Office said, quote, "The court security officers responded very quickly to the incident and gained control as the inmate did get up in an attempt to run off after he jumped out of a window." Now, Smith reportedly suffered minor injuries. He had to be airlifted to the University of Tennessee Medical Center at one point. For the guy already arrested on a warrant for being a fugitive for justice, he was then hit with a new charge of attempting to escape. Okay, next we find ourselves in Hillsboro, Oregon. It is again February 2023, and this time we have Edie Villalobos. He's being brought into a Washington County courtroom. It's jury selection in his murder trial, okay? So he is accused of stabbing two people, killing one. Not only did he face a second-degree murder charge, but he faced other charges as well, like unlawful use of a weapon, 2 counts of first-degree burglary, reckless driving, reckless endangerment. And authorities say that he was coming back to the courtroom after a bathroom break. Okay, and you see deputies, they're removing restraints from his legs, which our understanding is the policy, is the law in that jurisdiction. I mean, it makes sense because you don't want potential jurors to see the defendant in these shackles. That can be prejudicial, but all seems to be okay, ready for proceedings to start back up. And then, bam, he makes this mad dash out of the courtroom, literally sprints out of there. The deputies chase after him. Now, the courtroom is on the first floor, so he runs through the halls, and he's able to escape the courthouse. Villalobos reportedly was able to run away from authorities again after he leaves the courthouse. Law enforcement, they search the area. They set up a perimeter. They make sure that different transportation is stopped so that he can't jump on a bus or anything like that. And then hours later, they end up finding him. How? Well, they get a tip that someone is trying to get into this apartment building through a sliding glass door. This is at a nearby apartment complex. And authorities arrive, and they find Villalobos hiding in a bedroom closet. Well, after this incident, he had additional charges thrown at him of second-degree escape and burglary tacked on. Now, while this trial was suspended because of his escape, Villalobos would eventually be convicted of all counts in October of 2023, and he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Well, only 2 months later or so, we find ourselves with another escape situation in Hillsboro, Oregon, April 10th, 2023. We are at a probation violation hearing in Washington County. This time, we have 34-year-old defendant Jamie Regalad Pena. The judge notices that the defendant is under the influence, which violates the terms of his probation. So court staff call up court security to arrest him, right? Now, it should be noted that he wasn't under the custody of the Washington County Sheriff's Office yet, But as soon as security shows up, what does Jamie Regalado Pena do? He hightails it out of there, runs right out of the courtroom, running down the courtroom hallways. A detective, courtroom security, they were able to catch up to him. They were able to arrest him a block from the courthouse. He was able to make it that far. But you know what happened? He reportedly ran right into a parked car. Authorities say he was ultimately taken to a hospital, only had minor injuries, and then he was whisked away to jail. Now, Sergeant Danny DiPietro, a spokesman for the Washington County Sheriff's Office, said in light of the Villalobos incident and the Regalado Pena incident, something needs to be done. Quote, what we're doing is we're having conversations, and they're already taking place, between our court security unit, judges, the courts, try to figure out the best way to orchestrate these incidents in the future. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, next we are in Dayton, Ohio, where an inmate waiting in a holding area, this is before court starts, decided to try a unique escape route. Yeah, I think that's the best way to explain it. Jessica Boomershine was facing multiple charges for violent crimes, including kidnapping, felonious assault, aggravated robbery. She and an accomplice, Billy Joe Farah, robbed an elderly man in his home, actually forced him into his truck, forced him to withdraw money from an ATM, then proceeded to leave him at a waste facility. Now, in surveillance video from this holding area, Boomershine is sitting in front of a video monitor on a stool. She eventually stands up on the stool, tugging on the monitor a little bit to see if it moves. You're going to see why in a second. So Boomershine then gets up, gets one of the plastic chairs that's scattered around. She climbs on top of the video monitor, and that starts to get the attention of some of the other women in the room. She then tries to escape through the ceiling. Yeah, several of her fellow inmates react, with one woman clapping her hands, another in a holding cell actually jumping up and down. So officers notice this. They come into the room right as Boomershine falls through the ceiling, debris falling all down. She hangs onto the remnants, dangling a few feet in the air as officers try to pull her down. One officer even points what appears to be a taser at her. Now, unfortunately for Boomershine, the officer that is trying to pull her down actually just manages to pull down her pants at first. Yeah, it's quite the scene and sight, to say the least. But when the ceiling tiles all give way, Boomershine falls right into a trash can. From there, she's put in handcuffs. She's checked out by medical personnel, only had minor injuries. Boomershine didn't end up going to court that day, not surprising. But the next time she did, she had escape and vandalism charges added to her rap sheet. In the end, Boomershine later entered a guilty plea to all counts and was sentenced in 2021 to spend between 25 and 30 years for her part in that kidnapping and robbery plot. As for her co-defendant and accomplice, Farah, he was sentenced to 55 to 60 years in prison. Attorney Tom and Associates are a great sponsor of this episode of Sidebar. Finding the right lawyer in personal injury cases, that is not easy. Finding somebody that you can trust, that is invaluable. Enter Attorney Tom and Associates. From car accidents to securities fraud to data breach leaks to getting sick from bad drugs or toxic exposures to injuries from refinery explosions, whatever it may be, Tom and his team can help. And let me tell you, their track record is very impressive. They have the legal skills. They have the legal knowledge, but they also care. They have genuine empathy for their clients. That is so important. Tom and his team, they're there for you. Every call is free, private. You're going to be speaking with a member of his team straight away, and you won't pay a dime until you win, which just further shows their commitment to your success. And look, if your case not the best fit for Attorney Tom and his team, don't worry. They still may be able to recommend you a lawyer using their national network of attorneys. With Attorney Tom and his team, you're not just hiring a lawyer, though. You are gaining a powerful ally who is committed to justice and your well-being. So if you've suffered an injury and you need legal support, click the attorneytom.com/sidebar link pinned in the comments for a free consultation or dial 855-TOM-WINS. Over now to Meigs County, Tennessee, and the case of 33-year-old Rashad Hawkins. So Hawkins was in court in 2021 for failing to pay child support. He was going to be sentenced to time behind bars, but decided he wasn't up for that. So what does he do? He leaves the courtroom. Yeah, a deputy followed him out into the hallway, and Hawkins found himself at a dead end. So what does he do? He did what any reasonable person would do. He jumped over the second floor railing, crash landing on a potted plant on the first floor reception area. Can we see that again? Let's see that again. Ouch. Ouch. But I mean, he literally gets up, no hesitation, just takes off out a door, escaping. And through it all, he still managed to hold on to his court paperwork. Now, the Meigs County Sheriff's Office put out an update on its Facebook page asking the public to be on the lookout for Mr. Hawkins. He was a wanted man for 20 days, but then he was found 200 miles away in Kentucky. In fact, reporting indicates that a patrolman had arrested Hawkins in a neighborhood after there were reports that a man was trespassing in backyards. Hawkins allegedly resisted the officer, fought him off, ran away, but was ultimately detained after a foot chase. Hawkins ended up facing new charges of criminal trespassing, evading police, assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, and drug possession. Now over to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. David Knight is entering the courtroom, making an appearance on drug possession charges. But apparently, he also has a warrant that he seems he didn't know about. So before law enforcement are able to take him into custody, Knight walks quickly out of the courtroom and takes off down the crowded hall. He actually gets into an elevator right as people are boarding and makes his way down to the ground floor. Knight takes off towards the front door. There's a problem for him. A security checkpoint in the lobby. That is where a deputy spots him, tries to stop him, but Knight takes off. The deputy starts chasing him. Chase moves out. The chase goes out the door into the street, and just out of frame, that deputy reportedly manages to tackle Knight, take him into custody. Well, for this escape attempt, Knight faced a new charge of obstructing an officer. He entered a guilty plea and was given a 1-year suspended sentence. So as long as he followed the rules of his probation for 1 year, he wouldn't be locked up. Okay, we end this in Mayfield, Kentucky, where the person on the run from court isn't even on trial. So the blonde man in this video from the courthouse hallway is Andrew Connell. And he had been inside the courtroom itself, but was asked to leave after he was allegedly caught trying to talk to the defendant. So Connell tries to return to watch the proceedings, but backs out of the door when a deputy confronts him. That deputy is joined by another officer who pulls out his handcuffs and puts his hand on Connell's arm. That's when Connell decides to take off and crashes right into a group of women who have been walking toward the door. One of the women actually sees Connell headed their way and blocks him. She, Connell, the two officers, they all hit the floor. Fortunately, no one was injured. The deputies rolled Connell onto his stomach and put him in cuffs. He was charged with criminal trespassing, disorderly conduct, fourth-degree assault, resisting arrest, and fleeing. The criminal trespass charge was dismissed, but he entered a guilty plea to the other charges. He got 2 years probation. Pretty intense moments there caught on camera, and as I said, they're unbelievable, but oh boy, did they happen. All right, everybody, that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.